Our friend Finn has watched Dolittle 68 times since its release in January 17th of 2020. My name's Frank, and this is Viewlittle.
Nobody told me there'd be a dragon!
So let's address the dragon in the room, for starters. It's called Viewlittle, but you've viewed it a lot, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, I feel like I'm capable watching this movie without having any thoughts in my mind now. So I don't know if a lot was happening while I was watching Dolittle, but I have watched it 68 times.
Let's break those down, shall we? So you started off with the theatrical viewings in January of 2020, January 20th and January 25th. And then you watched it 6 more times later in the year, from August to October, twice each month.
Did I actually watch it twice in theaters?
Yes, you did.
Oh my goodness, I don't remember the second viewing.
Then's when it gets really interesting. Starting in 2021, we have what I call Dolittle-thon, or perhaps Do-Lot of Dolittle.
Well, I was thinking it was February. You can watch any movie you want, every day in the month of February.
And you did. And you picked Dolittle, and you watched it 28 times in a row. And then you watched it on March 1st.
Well, I thought it was a leap year.
Evidently. So you got that out of the way. Then fast forward to 2022 in the month of March, and we have another Dolittle-thon, and you watched it 31 times in a row, once every day.
Yeah, that was March Madness.
March Madness, right. And that brings us to 68 viewings of Dolittle.
Yeah, and we're about to embark on a very special one, the 69th.
We are. Here's the thing that I'm thinking about. So we're watching Dolittle once a week for a year.
Right.
That's 52 more viewings, which will break you over that 100 mark. And I have a theory that you are a person who has watched Dolittle the most out of anyone else on the planet Earth. At least you're in the top, I want to say 10,000 people.
So I guess a good question is, why did I watch Dolittle this much?
That is a very good question. I was just wondering that.
There's not a good answer for it. I think it's just like, because this movie is bizarre in that I don't think it's bad enough to require a viewing. I think part of the reason it's bad is it just has such weird choices and like direction and editing and acting, and that's bizarre, but I don't think it's a fun movie to watch necessarily.
There are probably people out there who have not watched Dolittle as many times as you have. Yeah. So for their benefit, why don't we start by you giving a brief synopsis, as brief as you can make a synopsis of what the movie is about, and then you can give a more detailed one right after that.
Okay. It starts with Stubbins, who is essentially the main character, and he wants, for some reason, he finds Dolittle through like happenstance, and he wants to become a doctor that can speak to animals. And then Dolittle is dealing with the tragic death of his wife, and then the queen's sick, and and then he decides to go on a journey to the same journey his wife went on, like as a form of catharsis, to find the cure for a queen that he doesn't seem to care about at all, and to save her. And then his nemesis, who Dr. Dolittle seems to have no interest in, Moodfly with a numot.
Moodfly, yes.
Martin Sheen, right?
Yes.
Michael Sheen? Michael Sheen. It's one of the Sheens.
The good news is we're going to watch this movie 52 times, so we'll know by the end.
And he is like tasked by, I don't know what the guy, he's like a lord. I forget his name. I haven't seen it recently. And he's tasked by him to like sort of stop him in finding the cure, because there's a scheme to kill the queen and take over. And that's the basic plot. And now you add in talking animals, because Dr. Dolittle can talk to animals, and that's how he gets out of hijinks. And there's like a weird, they wanted to focus on like grief because he's grieving over the death of his wife, and there's like some scenes with her father that are really weird. There's like a bunch of stuff in that, but in essence it's a journey from England to a mysterious island to find the Eden fruit to cure the queen of poison, because it's the only antidote. So that's like the brief synopsis. And then to go into more detail is like, it's kind of like Dolittle's not really the main character because he's so inept at a lot of things. And I don't know if that's on purpose or not.
So from your viewings, you think that
Stubbins is main. Because he's the audience insert too. He's the character you're supposed to see yourself as you're following Dolittle.
Okay.
And sort of like Great Gatsby. I would say they're about the same. Like works of literary art. or like Big Trouble in Little China. Sort of, where the main character is kind of a buffoon. And like Dr. Dolittle, he can talk to animals and he does solve problems, but it often comes up where he's a coward, and I don't know if that's on purpose or not, because he's not very heroic.
Do you? I've only seen this movie once.
This also could be my.
It was on your second theater viewing. Was my first viewing and only viewing, so I'm really excited to watch it and rediscover it. I don't remember a whole lot of it. Do you think that it's because he's grieving that you're feeling that way? That's the grief side of it?
I think it's because our Robert Downey Jr. just took such a weird approach to everything, and then the direction's unclear. Like, I honestly don't know, because there's like, Stubbins has some heroic scenes, and I don't really think Robert Downey Jr. does. Like when he fights the tiger. That's a spoiler. He fights the tiger. Barry, yes.
The tiger.
But yeah, I think it's because even when he fights the tiger, he sort of like evades him and doesn't do anything heroic. Like he just sits on the ledge with a laser pointer deal, and it's a funny cat joke. But he just hides and runs and talks. Like, it's very not fun. And then the hero is Chi-Chi the gorilla, right? He comes in and saves him.
Saves the day.
And same with Polly.
Defeats the tiger.
And it's like, it makes him seem like the only reason he's the main character is so he can bring in these hero characters. He built a team around himself of animals. Like, he seems very non-heroic. I think that might be... Well, the other thing is the wife is like not in the movie at all, but she's portrayed as being like the heroic type.
Is she in the flashback at all?
She is in the flashback. There's an animated flashback, and then she's visually in it, I think, for like 20 seconds in a field where they're like professing their love to each other. And it's a cool shot. But it's weird that Dolittle is such a worthless like hero, and like Stubbins does do the majority of the heroic stuff. So it's just like the whole thing to me is just weird, and I think that's why I latched onto it. And then also it happened in the perfect time of year of 2020 where I had nothing else to do.
In the midst of pandemic.
Yeah, and especially during 2021 where I was still mostly stuck at home and homework, and it kind of, I don't know, it just sort of
broke up
on.
February.
And I would watch it before going on runs at like midnight or like after running, and it was a weird sort of catharsis feeling for me. And then March was completely different, where it was like an old friend that you haven't seen for a while, and then you're like, oh, I like him. And then after a week of like living with him, you're like, maybe I remember why I haven't seen him in a year.
You wrote some notes on some of these with some of these viewings. And there's one in particular I want to bring up. It's from March 1st of 2022. So it had been a year since you'd watched it.
Right.
And you wrote, "The emotions I feel watching Dolittle for the first time in a year are unexplainable. I might be the only human who harbors such a love for this filth. I was thoroughly entertained." So now that it has been roughly 9 months since that moment, since you last watched it.
I am excited to watch it. I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of excited. I I've totally blanked the movie out of my mind, and I didn't really remember much after it. In like probably like June onwards, it kind of, and I used to quote it at work, and no one would know what I was saying because the quotes are like mundane things that just don't really matter. And then I sort of gotten away from all that, but now it's like all coming back to me, and I'm really excited to watch it for some reason.
Respect.
Yes, that's a quote from Dolittle.
I think one of the things I'm looking forward to most about this project that we're embarking upon, this journey, this voyage, perhaps, if you will, is that I expect by the end we're going to be dropping in a lot of Dolittle quotes.
Yeah, it's the real mundane ones for me that sort of like stand out. Like duck, 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 duck from the beginning. Or like his uncle in the very beginning, it's his uncle and his boy, and then Stubbins, they're like doing a hunting thing to show that Stubbins can't kill animals because he's a good guy. And the uncle says he's like, okay, now Junior is gonna flush him out and you'll shoot or something. That's not right. But then the boy says, nice plan, Dad, and scurries off. And that line cracks me up every single time, and I don't know why. Good plan, Dad. And then he says, duck, 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 duck. And there's a lot of quotes like that I sort of latched onto. Because you start to laugh at things that aren't funny.
As you start becoming more and more
mad, yes.
Do you think that this time, since we're watching it once a week,
right?
Do you think that will the experience will be vastly different to your Dolittle-thon?
I have no
once
idea.
every day?
It was sort of like in the middle of the month last year where I was like dreading watching it, where I'm like, I really like, why am I doing this? This is a waste of my time. I could be doing something else. And I put it on and be like, well, okay, it's over. And I have a feeling that towards the end in like or like towards like June, July, it's going to be the same thing where it's going to be like, do we really want to do it this week? Can we take a break?
It might feel that way, but we're going to have some fun, aren't we? Because
I sure hope so.
there are other iterations of Dolittle. There's Eddie Murphy. Look forward to that in June. We're going to have Eddie Murphy month.
Yeah. Well, it was my understanding that we're watching both of them.
We are watching both of them.
Okay.
We still have to watch Dolittle 2020 once a week.
Yes.
That's that's the stipulation.
Yeah, I mean, I am looking forward to the Eddie Murphy Dolittles. I'm also looking forward to the like 1970s Dolittle,
which we will not get to until December. The reason for that being, these episodes are coming out every Tuesday. And it is fortuitous that some Tuesdays, the dates of them are the same as when, this is really clunky, but we're going to get there. December 12th and December whatever. Dang it.
That's what we were talking about yesterday. The original Dolittle matches up with a Tuesday in December.
The 12th and the 19th. The Dr. Dolittle 1967 premiered in London on December 12th, and it premiered in the US on December 19th. And those are both Tuesdays this year. So we will be talking about Dr. Dolittle 1967 in December. Hang with us until then. I think that we need to address the dragon in the room at this point.
Again?
Nobody told me this. You want to be a dragon? There is a podcast called The Worst Idea of All Time.
Yeah, so they watch Grown Ups 2 every day for a year, which is much, much worse.
No, it was once a week.
Once a week? Was it once a week?
It's the same format. That's why we have to address the dragon in the room.
I thought they did it every day, which is
that would be way cooler.
Terrifying.
That would be really cool.
I cannot imagine that. But yeah, I mean, in fairness, when I watched Dolittle, I was inspired by that because it's such a funny like idea. It doesn't even matter the movie, just like watching it
the same thing every week.
Yeah, because
or
like
every day.
Every day in the month of February, because your thoughts on it are going to change just drastically from your first viewing to your last viewing, because it's just the movie is more personal to you than it should be, really.
Yes.
Like the experience you're having is much more I don't know, like personal. And I think that's a really cool idea.
There's some numbers I want to read about Dolittle 2022. It has a 2.1 out of 5 on Letterboxd out of 48.7 thousand ratings. 16 people are fans of this movie as of now, which means that they have it listed in their top 4. I looked at those accounts, and most of them only have Dolittle listed in their top 4, or they only have 2 movies in their top 4, and their accounts aren't active. So I thought that was very interesting.
Are you accusing me of something?
I'm just saying. On IMDb, it has a 5.6 out of 10 on 65,000 ratings. And on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 15% from critics. That's 242 ratings. And this is the real kicker here. A 76% from the audience on 10,000 ratings.
That's really shocking.
It's incredibly high.
I mean, that's so tough because Dolittle, there's like so much that has been edited, cut out, or ADR'd. There's a great scene where the guards like catch Dolittle breaking into his wife's father's, I forget his name, Razuli.
Mm-hmm.
They're breaking into his
Antonio Banderas.
Yeah, Antonio Banderas. They're breaking into his castle, and they catch him. And there's a really weird thing where he like touches a bayonet, and the guy goes, "No touch," and it's like ADR'd horribly, and it's just stuff like that. And then there's the whole character of the dragonfly, which is just the worst. And I kind of think he was just completely added in afterwards to like punch up those scenes, but I'm not entirely sure. That could just be speculation. I have a lot of thoughts about this because there's so many like through lines that don't quite add up or like are cut out. There's a weird like 5-second snippet of them breaking into the castle that shows Robert Downey Jr. and Stubbins like scaling walls, which is quite bizarre, and it's not addressed ever. And there's a bunch of stuff like that.
I think what we need for people on the production team to come on our podcast
I would love
and answer
that.
some questions that you have for them, because you have watched this movie 68 times, and that's a lot of attention that you've given to their wonderful work.
I would love like anyone who's cursorily involved, like anyone like somewhat involved.
Caterers,
Yeah.
stories from set.
Yeah, literally anything. Another thing is I would love to know the actual number of the celebrity, like that, the voice actors, the celebrities they got, who actually visited the set. Because I don't know that it's higher than like 2.
Do you think that is part of why Robert Downey Jr.'s performance is the way it is? Because he was acting to a blank space?
I mean,
Or do you think that they filled it in with people? In green
that's a
suits?
good question. I feel like that's like the normal now, right? Is to fill it in with people.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, he's in the Avenger movies. Like he knows how to act in front of nothing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think he is just doing, and also I feel like it's very important to point out that this is a passion project of his. Apparently, this is something that he really wanted to get filmed.
Which makes it all the more interesting.
It does. And it also is weird that he does like a weird Welsh accent when it's not really necessary.
Interesting fact on that. It is a Southwest English accent.
Okay.
Not technically a Welsh accent.
Well,
I spent some prep time looking at maps of England and Wales, and I have determined that, in particular because of some questions of imagery related to Wales that we'll get into later, I was curious about where his accent was coming from.
Because this movie definitely has an anti-Welsh turn.
It certainly does.
But yeah, I'm excited to watch the movie. I'm excited to do a podcast, and I'm excited we'll mix it up with some Eddie Murphy.
Mm-hmm. That'll be fun.
I do wonder like what the thought on that movie is, because if if it's rated lower than Dolittle, like by the audience, that would also kind of shock me. Because a 76%
feels high.
That's so high.
Feels really high. It makes you wonder if there's some balancing going on there where people are looking at the critic score after watching the movie and going, my kids had a great time. That was a lot of fun. And then saying, why does it have a 12% and giving it a 10?
I don't think any parent would watch the very last scene with the dragon and be like, this is appropriate for kids. Because that would there
were some very interesting decisions made in this movie.
That scene is very inappropriate. And the fact that there's clearly a romance between Plimpton, the ostrich, and Yoshi the bear, which I feel like some parents would find objectable. It is a bromance, but I feel like they should just kiss. So I don't know, if I was a parent with my kids, I don't know how much my kids would enjoy it, but I guess I'm not one of those. We'll have to find someone with young kids and subject them to this just to see their reaction.
I think that is a good idea. I think that over the course of this, we should, because you have an interesting insight having seen it 68 times, where you're coming from a much different place from someone who has seen it never.
Yeah, I will say it is quite a boring movie. There's there's a middle section that drags. It's right after I guess it's towards the end. It's right after they get caught in the castle, and they escape, and Razuli gives them a boat. It's that point onward to the dragon is so boring. And it's not that long. It feels really long. I'd always doze off and have to wake up and start from that point onward again. That happened a couple times because it's just at that point I was checked out. But I don't think this movie is very accessible to anyone, including myself. I feel like there's still a barrier. But I mean, you're watching it for your second time.
I am watching it for my second time. My first time in 3 years.
Yeah, so you'll be able to tell me whether or not it sucks or not.
Yes. I remember after my first viewing thinking that it was the worst thing I'd ever seen in theaters. And that's saying something because a month before we watched Cats, which is actually...
Cats has more artistic value.
It was more bad because it was nightmarish. I think that the other one that's up there in that list is Holmes and Watson.
Holmes and Watson.
Which similarly seems to have problems of being an edited mess.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison because in Holmes and Watson there's a lot of ad-libbing, where it seems like a lot of stuff wasn't scripted. And with Robert Downey Jr. being the only real actor that we know of on set, him and I think it's Michael Sheen. Those are the only two people on set, really. All the animals, I'm assuming, aren't the actual actors. So I wonder how much improv anyone really had in this movie, especially Robert.
Going by some articles that I read, there were suggestions that Robert Downey Jr. was improvising and rewriting a lot of sequences of this movie. And that might be part of why things are the way they are.
In fairness to him, I feel like it would be really hard to be on, because I wonder how, I have so many production questions. Because, the way I like to picture it is he's in a room by himself, an empty set. They have one cameraman, one boom mic, and he's going insane. And he's just sort of ad-libbing because no one's talking to him and no one's saying cut.
Cut!
What else do we need to discuss on this what should we... Oh, what are your expectations for the movie? On your second viewing? Well, going off what you saw earlier, what do you think it's going to be?
I think that it's going to be worse than I remember, but I've been progressively getting more and more excited about this. because it's sort of building into this event of watching Dolittle once a week for a year.
Right.
And that's really stupid. And I'm excited. But I also think it's going to be bad.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like my end, I'm definitely excited to watch it again. But also, I'm wondering how much I will just like take over the viewing experience, like really get into it. Because towards the end, I was definitely talking to myself last year. And yeah, I do think there's a good chance we stop after today. Like, this could be a one and done.
Yeah.
At least for you. I mean,
No.
my plans are in April every day. So that way, in 10 years, I'll have watched it every month, every day, every day in the month.
Of the year.
Yeah. No. Yes.
Because you've done it twice. You've done it for 2 years. You have all of February. You have all of April.
All March, and now I want all of April.
Right.
So just 10 more years of this, and I can say I've watched it
Every day of the year.
Yeah.
There will not be a day in the year that you have not watched
Right.
Dolittle. That's a pretty cool achievement.
It's definitely a red flag.
It's certainly interesting.
I'll put on my resume to show that like I can be committed to things.
You have watched the movie Dolittle more than anyone else on Earth.
That's true. But yeah, one thing we'll need to like start discussing is like, because I have a lot of fan theories that I want to get into about like things I think happened or like ideas they had. And then I have some of my own fan theories of like things I just wish happened. Fan fiction, rather.
Wonderful. I'll go ahead and lay out a bit of the rough plan here. So this is sort of the prologue. We were going to mention all the times Finn has watched Dolittle and why he's done it. And I think that we've done that. Next week, January 17th, which is the 3-year anniversary of Dolittle being released in theaters in the United States, we're going to watch the trailers and the teasers, and we're going to talk about that first theatrical release and the first screening that you had. And from there, we're planning to break down some of the financial and marketing things. We're going to get into the visual effects. We're going to talk about the directors, plural. We're going to talk about the writers, plural. We're going to talk about the book that inspired the movie. We've got a lot of fun planned. So that should take us somewhere into June.
Oh, boy. Oh, one more question before we wrap this up. Who is your favorite character going in blind? Do you even remember anyone? Who do you think is going to have the most impact on you?
I think that the only character that I remembered the quotes of, Plimpton from the trailer saying, "Nobody told me there was going to be a dragon," and Yoshi the bear going, "Respect." And I think that Yoshi the bear is my favorite character.
Yeah, that's fair.
Who was played by John Cena.
John Cena, yeah. I think my favorite character is, it's a mix because I love the characters that were clearly added in post to the side. So the example is the orangutan, whose name I have no idea what it is, who's just like, "I want to dance," and drunkenly dances. And then the rabbit, who's like taunting Dolittle across from him.
This is going to be, speaking of the rabbit, that's a good moment because you have the rabbit and the tiger in those cells.
Yeah.
And here we are between the year of the tiger merging into the year of the rabbit. So very appropriate. I'm really excited for that scene. I think we'll have to do an episode breaking down that scene, talking about the dungeon and the castle as the year shifts over from tiger into rabbit.
Okay, so now is a good time to watch Dolittle for my 69th time. And Frank, this is your second time?
Second time and the first time of the year.
Okay, let's go watch it.
And we're back. We watched Dolittle. We did it. The first one is done. We have 51 more to go. And your first impression.
Well, this is actually my 69th impression.
Right, nice, yes.
Yes, nice. It's still bad. It's funny you think it would have changed, but no, it's still the same movie.
For me watching it, it was a lot better than I remembered. Especially the opening, I think. I didn't remember most of it, and a lot of it worked, I think. There's still too many strange decisions, and it's still not a good movie by any stretch. But there are more spaces where I was thinking, if they would have done something a little different here, this actually could work.
Right, and like, because this is what happens to me. It's like I always defend the movie because I've seen it so many times, and I feel like it sort of validates my decision to watch that many times. But like, the beginning's quite good when Robert Downey Jr. is speaking in animals. It's very cool.
It's eccentric, and it's
very
dumb,
fun.
and...
But how cool would it be if they just never spoke English?
It would be better. It would be more fun.
And you could cut
to lean into that.
The whole voice cast, which I feel like that's something we need to talk about. We'll just right off. What is your first impressions of the voice cast?
There are a lot of big names in this movie.
Yeah, there are.
And I think that as you're watching it, it sort of feels like they're signed on to make you watch the movie, but not given much thought to what they actually offer in terms of voice acting. Something
we'll have to like look into later is also like, I wonder how many lines they actually have.
I think that there's not very many for every person.
Right, yeah, it's quite limited. Like, the only people who are main roles are like
Unfortunately,
Emma Thompson.
Unfortunately, most of the speaking is done by Robert Downey Jr. And he's doing a ridiculous accent.
So it's Emma Thompson, John Cena, and I think Rami Malek and Kumail Nanjiani. Those are like the only people who have consistent lines, I think, for animals.
Yes. I think everyone else would probably be in the 10 lines range. Like even Kevin the Squirrel, I think he probably has 10 lines.
Yeah, it's just wild that there's like, that's your main cast and they have nothing to say really. They just,
or to do.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot that really happens in the movie. I think it tries to trick you that there's more going on.
And like, I feel like they could have just gotten rid of the talking animals like altogether, and the movie wouldn't have changed. Like, all you're missing is John Cena saying respect after a fart.
Maybe that's because everything is ADR'd as an afterthought instead of structured into the movie.
And then that brings us to the other thing, is like, it's so hard to know what was shot, like who was there, like what animals were intended to be in what scenes, because it all, even like animal dialogue feels ADR'd, which is wild because it should be in a studio. Like, why does it feel like it was edited over the footage of like the like special effects? Like, does that make sense? Like, it doesn't look like they matched it up very well. You're just like, oh, we need to reshoot for this dialogue line. So can you call us? We'll just do it over the phone real quick.
It does kind of have that feeling to it, doesn't it?
And all those big names, a lot of them are unrecognizable, like their voices. I don't know if I would recognize Tom Holland if you told me, like if you didn't tell me it was him. Or like Selena Gomez.
Well, part of that too, though, is that they only have, like, they have 5 lines. So you don't have a chance to get to know these characters or to realize that they are the big names that they are.
Yeah. What do you think of like the overall plotting? Because I know we both like said it sort of stalls after the middle.
Yeah, I think so. There's a point where lightning strikes the ship and there's like a tease of a storm event happening. And from that point, for me, it really slows down. That's where I got bored out of my mind. It felt like maybe originally there was more built in here, where it was like, oh, there's a big storm event that they go through, because sort of paralleling the story with Lily, where Lily went through that storm on her way to the Eden Island.
Yeah.
And died. I wonder if they intended for Dolittle to go through that as well, and that was part of what got cut because the movie was too dark with test audiences.
Yeah, also it's weird.
Just a thought I had.
Well, like also once they cut to
castle.
Monteverdi, there's like a quick montage of them breaking into the castle, which is like 3 rapid fire scenes that don't really, they need more. They're like really, really short.
And everything becomes a lot more jokey and trying to be funny with all of the bug characters, and I hate all of the bugs.
Yeah, I don't know what a Godfather reference is doing in the kids' movie.
I think that there are a lot of references in this movie. I think that the opening monologue is The Hobbit, and then you've got there are a lot of movies in here. I think that we could break down and
Just
diagram out a lot of, well, break down for sure, but also diagram out a lot of other movies that we can find tucked into this mess.
And like going off of the dark, Antonio Banderas is like Lily's father. He has like a really good monologue after they get caught, and it works really well. And then they do this weird sound editing to make it humorous.
I think that most of the jokes in this movie don't land at all.
They don't.
And I think that it's bad.
Speaking from experience, they start to land after your 40th watch.
I believe you. Looking forward to it.
Oh my goodness. You can only watch a tiger get kicked in the balls like 30 times before you start to be like, okay, yeah.
It's all of the jokes are fart jokes, kicked in the nuts, dog dragging butt on carpet jokes.
Well, no, there's a lot of weird, like, non-joke jokes. Like the fox yelling, Viva la Revolution.
Strange reference jokes?
Yeah, like things that are just characters saying things that don't really make sense with the times or, like, in context. Like, they're just, like, sort of just things are said, and that's a joke.
Yeah.
Like, why would the fox say that? But then, you know, it's
so
just John Cena talking, and is that a joke? Like when they're saying bro?
Yes.
What else do we need to get through? Oh, we need to talk about the dragon scene. That's like the one scene that I know most people know about, at least.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Yeah. I think part of the reason why I don't like it is, like, at all, even after watching it so many times, is because it happens at such a boring part of the movie that by the time you get to it, like that, when I would, like, start to drift off and, like, I'd be awake but not, like, focused at all, that's when I'd, like, check back in. But it's just so boring still.
Maybe it's actually a genius move because they undercut this moment where Robert Downey Jr., John Dolittle, he makes eye contact with a dragon skull, and he has this understanding that this dragon is as lonely as he is because they're both suffering as lonely beings. And instead of getting into that and taking these people are depressed angle, they make a giant fart joke and have impacted bowels instead.
Yeah, and then there's like a moment of catharsis, and you think that's going to be the payoff, but she just sets him down. He's like, but actually,
right,
that's not the issue at all.
It's that I have bagpipes lodged in my butt. Yeah.
And then he takes the leek, which he says is the national symbol of Wales,
and uses it as the weapon of choice to dislodge
the dragon, which is the national symbol of Wales.
Yeah.
And that always was weird to me.
I think that it's possible the monarchy commissioned this movie. I think we need to look into the funds that were spent and where they came from. We're gonna have to do some research on that. We have a questionable Welsh accent. We have the national symbol of Wales, the dragon, and the leek. And
I mean, it does lead to the best part of the movie when John Cena says respect.
That's true, and I forgot that's what that line came after.
Yeah, trust me, that line just gets funnier and funnier, especially when you see it coming, because it's just like, yeah, okay. I don't know, maybe I'm like just a severely like diminished person after all this that I'm like starting to become childlike myself and like fall into these jokes. Because like seeing them coming,
They
I kind of
aren't
giggle.
even childlike jokes, though.
They're just fart jokes.
They're bathroom humor jokes and uncomfortable.
Okay, so we talked about the plot, the characters, the voice talent. We sort of touched upon Robert Downey Jr. But let's go back on that. He's pretty awful. Just like, I don't know what else to say. He's not very good.
It was a mistake. The accent was a mistake.
So we had a bit of a debate. The character isn't Welsh, but he's doing a Welsh
John
accent.
Dolittle, the character, Dr. Dolittle, is from technically Southwest England, but apparently he's doing a Welsh accent in this movie.
Which is such a strange choice. And we read that he said that it's like the hardest accent on earth to do. Which is like weird that like why would you pick that then?
See, that's why I'm pretty
character's not
sure.
that?
I think that the monarchy of England is behind they foot the bill on this, and they want to put down the Welsh people. That's what I'm suspecting. We'll have to dig into that.
And like any scene he has that's like okay, like there's like a scene on the boat where he's sort of dealing with grief when he's discussing the journal, and it's undercut by jokes.
I want to see the test screening cut really bad. I really want to see it. I want to know what it was like.
Yeah.
I want to know more. I want someone to talk to me about it.
We'll have to watch behind the scenes too, because I don't know what was on set with Robert Downey Jr. Like, for all I know, it could have been an empty set. There's things like when he's holding the squirrel, it's clearly nothing in his hand.
Yep.
And there's like a bunch of stuff like that. So I'm curious like how much was even there, and I hope there's like behind the scenes on the Blu-ray, like making of.
We'll have to watch it and find out. I think that there's not a whole lot. There's like a walkthrough of the house and a couple other things. I think there's 4 4-minute special features. So we'll have to dig into those.
Okay, so that's Robert Downey Jr. The last 2 things we have to talk about is like the production value, like the sets, because they're quite good.
The costumes and the sets and it all looks pretty good for the most part.
The special effects are a little spotty, and they're very spotty.
There are some, especially some of those snap zooms that are really rough.
The snap zooms on nothing.
There's some real rough digital snap zooms they're fun. They're great.
There's the scene of Stubbins riding the giraffe.
That
and
one
it just looks like he's levitating.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
That's really good.
But like overall, like all the sets, like the house looks really good. Monte Verde looks really good. The ship is pretty distinct as well.
They're playing up colors and eccentric things, and it's vibrant and saturated, and it's a fun world.
There's a lot of money that was spent on this.
There's a lot of money that was spent on this movie. I sort of understand why people on the audience score of Rotten Tomatoes gave it at least a 6 out of 10. Not that I would give it that. It's like a solid 3 out of 10. It's not a good movie, but I can see why people might accidentally have fun if they aren't really watching.
I can't see it. Maybe I'm like jaded, and I do probably like this movie. It has a place in my heart more than anyone else. But yeah, I can't see a 7. Like I don't, or a 6 even. It's just not. It's not very good, and I don't think kids would like it. Like I think if they were young enough, they'd be distracted enough because it is colorful.
That's the only thing that it has going for it. I don't think that it could hold their attention though. Beyond that,
yeah, because it could hardly hold my attention.
The story doesn't really progress in a way that makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
it's also choppy.
In point that there are like 3 definite like act conclusions, because there's the like weird chase scene where they're chasing Stubbins and he boards the boat.
Stubbins becomes apprentice, does apprenticey things on the boat.
Yeah.
Up to the lightning strike on the boat, and they make it to Monte Verde.
And
then the ending sequence chase into the Dragon Island.
Yeah. The conclusion is like the weird thing at the end.
The return to England where
He saves the Queen, Stubbins does.
And they reveal the Lord as the anti-monarchist. Well, he's against women is what he is.
And then one last thing I want to mention is Danny Elfman did the score. I think it's really good.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I want to say. I think the main theme is pretty good. The rest is kind of okay, but it's not like I like it, but it kind of fades away. I couldn't sing it for you. I could sort of do the main theme, but
yeah, I'm excited to continue listening to it.
One thing we did on our movie list is we rated it like, would you recommend this movie and did you enjoy the movie? Because those are like the two biggest criteria, like regardless of how good the movie is.
For me, on this viewing, I did enjoy it. And I think it's because it was not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Right.
And I'm suddenly going, I could watch this 51 more times. That's where I'm sitting right now. I feel pretty good. So yes, I enjoyed it. No, I would not recommend it. I don't think people should watch this movie. It's just not worth it. It's not that fun. It's not that funny. It's strange. That's where I'm at. How about you?
I'm like really sleepy. So I think I didn't sleep well last night. And I went into this movie in a bad state of mind because I was tired, and I wouldn't recommend this movie. I did enjoy this movie, so no on that. And then recommend, I can't recommend it. I know it'll probably change the more I watch it because I'll be like, well, you gotta see like.
We'll have to track our cycling between how we feel after each viewing. We'll get this logged on Letterboxd, and we'll see you next time. This has been Viewlittle. I'm Frank. I'm out of here.
I'm Finn. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.